The coastal city of Port Alheri was a sprawling, vibrant tapestry woven from sea salt, diesel smoke, and the booming laughter of commerce. At its heart, near the busiest docks, stood a humble street stall known simply as Adiza's Golden Grill. It was run by Mama Adiza, a woman of powerful build and a dazzling, if slightly weary, smile. Her specialty was grilled fish, fresh from the morning catch, marinated in a secret blend of spices that made the air itself hum with anticipation. But Adiza's fish was more than just a meal, it was an obsession. Her stall was never empty. From the moment the first coals glowed red until the last lamp flickered out at midnight, a line stretched down the quay, composed of dockworkers, merchants, and even city officials who drove their expensive cars right onto the dusty pavement. They paid Mama Adiza handsomely, sometimes arguing fiercely over the last piece, their eyes alight with a frantic, desperate hunger that seemed to have little to do with actual sustenance. The moment the fish, crispy, smoky, and unbelievably flavorful, touched their tongues, a look of profound, blissful peace would wash over their faces, followed almost immediately by an anxious longing for the next time they could eat it. Mama Adiza would serve them with practiced grace, accepting their coin and their rapturous praise, though her smile never quite reached her eyes. In the dead hours before dawn, when the market was silent, Adiza would trek to a hidden corner of the docks. She never used the bustling central market. Instead, she bought a specific type of catch from a grizzled, taciturn fisherman who only accepted payment in polished silver. It was during these quiet transactions that she would quickly, almost fearfully, incorporate her true secret, a dark, pungent paste she kept sealed in a small, oiled gourd, a spice not found in any common marketplace. It was this rare, powerful essence, derived from a forbidden root grown deep in the distant highlands, that ensnared the appetites and, subtly, the minds of her customers. Amidst the chaos of craving and coin, a small figure moved through the shadows. This was Kofi, a homeless boy no older than 10, quick-witted and skeletal, whose life was measured in stolen scraps and discarded fruit peels. Kofi knew every alley and every rhythm of Port Alheri, and he watched Adiza's stall with the calculating intensity of a seasoned hawk. He was fascinated, and increasingly disturbed, by the strange frenzy around the Golden Grill. He had seen hunger before, but this was different. It was a need that devoured men's dignity. Kofi would often approach the line, his small hand outstretched, begging for a single discarded bone or a coin, only to be roughly chased away by Adiza with sharp words and a harsh broom. "Go away, vermin. Don't you dare disturb my good customers," she would hiss, her face momentarily losing its charming mask to reveal the steel beneath. As the weeks turned into months, the prosperity of Adiza's Golden Grill became legendary, but the cost to her patrons was steep and evident. The cravings were consuming them. Dockworkers began selling their tools, merchants bartered their inventory not for currency, but for Adiza's fish, and city officials were neglecting their duties, spending hours waiting in line, their eyes bloodshot and anxious. Their lives, once stable and structured, had become a frantic chase for the next taste. Families suffered, children cried for food their fathers could no longer afford to buy, and the market, though seemingly prosperous for Adiza, began to tilt toward a strange, collective dependency. Kofi, who possessed an uncanny eye for patterns and human desperation, began to understand. He didn't understand the spice, but he understood the need. He noticed that the customers weren't buying fish to satisfy hunger, they were buying it to silence a roaring anxiety. He saw men argue with Adiza about payment, their voices high and desperate, but the moment they took a bite, their desperation vanished, replaced by a temporary, vacant calm. The only time they seemed truly happy was in the instant of eating the fish. The moment it was gone, the sickness, the need, returned. He learned to approach the waiting customers. "Mister, spare a coin for bread. You have spent all your earnings on this woman's food, and your children wait with empty bellies," he would plead. His words were met with indifference, sometimes a shove, but always with a fierce, protective glare directed at the fish stall. They saw Kofi as an annoying insect distracting them from their true focus. One exceptionally dark, humid night, Kofi was scavenging behind the market stalls. He was drawn by a dim, flickering lantern light spilling from the back of Adiza's shop. He crept closer, hiding behind stacked crates of empty baskets. There, he witnessed Mama Adiza performing her secret ritual. She wasn't just seasoning, she was meticulously scraping a hard, dark chunk of root with a small, bone-handled knife. The pungent, bitter aroma, unlike anything Kofi had smelled before, wafted on the damp air. She then ground the scrap into a fine, black powder, mixing it into the thick, red marinade with a practiced, furtive movement. As she walked, Adiza muttered to herself, her usual hearty voice replaced by a tired, low grumble. "It is the root of the mountain, it gives the taste, but it takes the will," she whispered, her hands working furiously. "I must have more. I must secure my future before this madness breaks." Kofi stayed hidden, his young heart pounding, the terrifying truth clicking into place. The special ingredient wasn't magic, but a poison of the soul, a root that commanded the appetite. He knew then that Mama Adiza was not a chef, but a thief, stealing not their money, but their very ability to choose. The need that had been driving the customers, the illness he had witnessed, was her doing. He resolved that he could no longer simply scavenge, he had to act. Kofi spent the next few days trying to formulate a plan, but how could a ragged street boy expose a respected, successful vendor? He tried direct appeals again, running along the lines of waiting patrons. "Do not eat this. It steals your mind. It makes you forget your home," he cried. He was ignored, pushed away, and threatened. The customers, high on anticipation, saw him as a lunatic disrupting their temporary relief. Realizing that simple words wouldn't work, Kofi chose a desperate, public confrontation. He waited until the midday rush, the busiest time when the line was at its longest and most frantic. He watched as a prominent spice merchant, known for his generosity before falling under Adiza's sway, approached the counter, his eyes glazed with craving. As Adiza handed the merchant his precious, golden grilled fish, Kofi darted from the shadows, not to beg, but to disrupt. He leaped onto the wooden counter, sending a shower of spices and napkins flying. He seized the merchant's arm just as the man was about to take a bite. "Sir, look at you. You sold your wife's wedding earrings for this. This is not food, it is a chain. Wake up! Kofi shouted, his voice cracking but filled with raw conviction. The merchant roared in frustration, tearing his arm away, furious at the interruption. But before he could strike the boy, Mama Adiza lunged across the counter, her mask of grace shattering into pure, furious malice. "You venomous pest! I warned you," she screamed, abandoning all pretense of hospitality. She grabbed Kofi's worn cloth pouch, the one holding his few possessions, and threw it against the stone wall. In the ensuing chaos, her own small, oiled gourd, the one containing the forbidden root paste, slipped from her apron pocket and clattered onto the ground. The impact shattered the clay, and the thick, dark paste spilled onto the dirt, releasing its sharp, acrid odor into the air. A respected elder, Boba Oleniai, a retired ship captain known for his keen knowledge of the region's rare flora, stood near the front of the line. He watched the scene unfold with quiet intensity. As the crowd murmured about the violence and the boy's accusations, Boba Oleniai knelt and, ignoring the spilled paste, picked up a shattered shard of the gourd. He recognized the smell instantly. It was akberebi, the root of desire, a psychoactive substance forbidden for consumption, known to create intense, all-consuming addiction and crush the will of its users. Adiza, the Boba's voice cut through the noise, quiet yet heavy with authority. "What have you done?" The crowd, finally startled out of their haze by the unprecedented chaos and the elder's solemn accusation, turned their bewildered attention from the fish to the spilled root, the stench of deceit replacing the aroma of the grill. Mama Adiza, cornered and exposed, sank to the ground, her face a mask of defeat and shame, the false light in her eyes extinguished. In the stunned silence that followed Boba Oleniai's discovery, the spell was irrevocably broken. The customers, suddenly confronted with the ugly reality of their obsession and the stark contrast between the desperate, starved boy and the fraudulent vendor, began to recoil in horror, not at the boy, but at themselves and the woman who had enslaved their appetites. The city police were quickly summoned. Mama Adiza was taken away, the truth of her deceit, her calculated use of the forbidden root to create a dependency, unraveling swiftly through the testimony of Boba Oleniai and the heartbroken accounts of her customers. The people were shaken, not physically hurt, but deeply wounded by the realization that their own choices and free will had been compromised for months. As the realization of his bravery sank in, Kofi, still trembling from the confrontation, was hailed not as a beggar, but as a hero. He was the only one whose pure, unclouded hunger for basic justice had allowed him to see past the dazzling taste of the fish. He had endured Adiza's cruelty, witnessed the truth, and acted upon it, saving Port Alheri from a creeping spiritual decay. The community, grateful and seeking redemption for their own blindness, rallied around the boy who had spoken the truth when everyone else was lost to craving. Boba Oleniai took immediate charge. He saw in Kofi not just a brave boy, but a child with fierce intelligence and an unbending spirit. Kofi was cleaned, fed, and clothed. More importantly, he was given a home under the care of Boba Oleniai's own family, who had suffered when their eldest son had almost lost his business to the Golden Grill. The collective guilt and gratitude of the merchant community funded Kofi's future. He was enrolled in school, his quick mind absorbing lessons with the same focus he once applied to observing the market's hidden truths. He was given a chance to fulfill his potential, a potential that had been hidden beneath rags and hunger. Kofi's days of scavenging and fear were over. He learned to read and write, eventually apprenticing under a respected shipbuilder, his small hands learning to measure and craft, building a future as solid as the ships he helped construct. He never forgot the bitter scent of the root of desire, nor the kindness of the community that lifted him up. His story became a legendary tale in Port Alheri, not just of Mama Adiza's downfall, but of the young boy, the unbending spirit of Kofi, whose courage proved that even the humblest among us can hold the torch of truth and usher in a hearty new dawn for all.